You believe there was a conspiracy to kill
Definitely,
Dodi?
they been murdered. Dodi and Diana being murdered, definitely. I am the father who knows everything.
The secrets of the royal family aren't locked in a vault. They're revealed through Diana's recently discovered diary. Within its pages lie shocking confessions, hidden truths.
Do you think Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, there were three of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
And the haunting realities of life inside the monarchy.
The shocking allegations about Princess Diana's death. Authorities now reviewing the new and sensational claim that she was actually murdered by the British government.
What untold secrets did Diana unveil, which could destabilize the monarchy? But why were these confessions buried in the first place?
What has impressed you most about her?
I think just the qualities that are essential for somebody in a leadership role. Her 20th anniversary year feels like a good time to remember, all the good things about her. And
join us as we unravel the mystery of Diana's diary and the shocking truths it has uncovered. The People's Princess. Princess Diana's secret diary has revealed damaging truths about the royal family, leaving them speechless, shattering their facade.
News ever, Britain's Prince William is talking about the impact of losing his mother. He's hoping to help others by sharing his very personal thoughts.
my mother would have known that she had been deceived. She was failed not just by a rogue reporter, but by leaders at the BBC who looked the other way rather than asking the tough questions.
And exposing struggles and betrayals that defined her life within the palace wall. Princess Diana, the mere mention of her name brings to mind beauty and royalty, a wedding fit for princes and princesses, elegance, glamour, a smile, and charm that could lighten up even the sternest faces. With all these, Princess Diana's life beyond the public was far from Cinderella. Far from it, beyond the veil, was pain and sorrow. Of course, she was the people's princess, but that public admiration was not enough to make Diana happy. Her introduction to the royal family was a tidal wave of popularity and a sea of problems. A 20-year-old girl gets swept off her feet by her dream prince, only to discover that she is in a world where appearances matter more than emotions. Diana soon learned that while smiling and making the right curtsies was important in royal life, there was so much more to it. The need to balance royal duties and personal heartbreaks. Now, here's where things get juicy. For years, there have been rumors about the existence of a diary. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you did not mishear it. There is an undisclosed box full of Diana's journals. Try to picture her putting something down that represents her thoughts on all of hers. Her unstable marriage, her scandalous divorce, and even some juicy royal secrets that would turn the Queen's crimson even in Buckingham Palace. Diana, being an emotionally expressive woman, used writing as an escape, a safe space to vent and pour out your frustrations, fears, and dreams. Where else could one turn to under the watchful eyes of the world, if not the comforting faces of blank pages, where your true self can exist? If such a diary existed, it would not be just a diary but a royal scandal with the potential to overturn centuries of practices. It would be like getting an all-access backstage pass into a life that is as interesting as it is problematic. And let's face it, who wouldn't want a peek? While reading the story of Diana's alleged diary, we learn secrets and walk in the shoes of the woman who, despite living under incredible pressure, redefined the concept of royalty. Ready to dive in? What dark secrets are we going to uncover in this diary? The diary unveiled, a hidden world of emotion and struggles. The details of Princess Diana's diary are shocking. A glimpse into the heart and spirit of the woman who demanded millions' attention but had so much pain inside. In the course of the diary, Diana presents the transformation of a young girl, a 20-year bride, into a powerful woman who is going to struggle for her individuality. It is about friendship, treachery, survival, and optimism. The magic and illusion of an adolescent's princess wedding kicks off Diana's diary. She paints a picture, showing how she feels compelled to glow while struggling with her fears. She described the magnificence that mesmerized her, but the coldness that froze her soul. So, for Diana, the marriage was not the happily ever after. It was the start of a life she never knew she would need to be strong for. The world watched a fairy tale, but she was moving towards a gilded cage. Throughout her life as a princess, Diana conveyed the severe cracks that emerged in her marriage. She was honest in her attempts to bond with Prince Charles, with whom affection seemed lacking. Betrayal and the resulting pain of learning about an unfaithful partner were mentioned frequently in the diary. Prince Charles, who would go on to become king, had a scandalous affair with Camilla while he was still married to Diana. Diana did not hesitate to describe the suffering of betrayal by Charles, as well as the emotional price she had to pay for it. She penned down all the feelings she had for the other woman in their marriage, the feeling of betrayal and anger. It was a love triangle, and she was not a part of it. Her words can be heard by every woman who has ever felt left out of her marriage. The diary also reveals the royal pressures of the social status that was expected to be followed by the princess. Here, Diana describes countless protocols, stiff procedures, and constant focus on observers and the media. She had mastered the art of suffering and smiling. Her words show that she was living a life of a symbol, a person fighting a system in which being different was a weakness. This diary produces a vivid image of a young woman who was reduced to surrendering her autonomy. Diana's affection for her sons, William and Harry, brings warmth to the diary, filling it with love and pride. She narrated how they played pranks, got energy, and how those little fellows positively affected her. They were her world. This part of her diary pictures a loving mother willing to raise her two boys with empathy for the outside world from within the palace. Perhaps one of the reasons Harry left the royal family. Diana did not love the media, describing them as nothing more than a pack of wild animals searching for their prey. As far as she was concerned, this was not merely a record of the events of her life. They were pursuing her, weaving stories out of her happiness into tragic, juicy stories, and out of her pain into unseemly sensationalism. She was the hunted in a never-ending hunt, a face hunted daily by cameras, eyes peering even when the lids were shut. She knew the press did not just inform, rather, they attacked, distorted, and sometimes even lied, all to get that headline that could generate some sales. Diana was not just annoyed, she was angry, and for good reason. To her, the media was not simply an inconvenience. They were a system that was created to bring her down bit by bit. Diana soon found how to navigate the press and control narratives. Diana's humanitarian work was a glimpse of the dark, something that would come to give her purpose. She captured her experiences in hospitals, her participation in the company of AIDS patients, and her advocacy on other major issues. Those moments reminded her of what it was all about. It was the writings of a woman who had a passion for making a difference in society, a feat that brought her solace. Further, we know from Diana's diary that she was afraid of being unsafe. Come on. Her life sounded like a movie plot from a political thriller. She could tell that it would not be a mere accident if anything happened to her. She believed her life was far too planned for that to happen. She had a constant feeling of being watched. She narrated experiences that ranged from encountering eerie characters to feeling surrounded and watched. Amusingly, she was comparing her life with a film spy, always waiting for something or someone out to get her. She said that she only half joked about the so-called invisible paparazzi, and several mysterious clicks on the phone that made her doubt even ordinary moments. But beneath the wit, there was a chilling certainty. Diana felt her life, was a ticking time bomb. Her story was hanging by a thread in a world that was not fit for a princess who strived to rewrite the royal family's traditions. Diana's musings on royal life could give the sharpest social commentary a run for their money. She said the royal family was like people in a play that would never end, and all of them were excellent in portraying their parts like professional Oscars. They were the best friends and comrades to everyone out there. But what went on behind the scenes? It was less Downton Abbey and more an emotionally distant soap opera. They were all laughing, they were all smiling, they were all posing for the picture-perfect family moment as Diana described them. She pointed out rather sarcastically that concern appeared to be woefully scarce, or at least completely overshadowed by maintaining the firm's immaculate facade. Feelings were suppressed, and what was left was a lot of protocol and etiquette, along with a stiff neck. To Diana, the members of the royal family appeared more concerned with what she thought of them than with getting to know her. And what struck her as patently ridiculous was the fact that all the luxury and glamour of her life, and yet there was no love to be found. After getting her divorce, her entries became more rebellious in some ways. Diana enjoyed the freedom of single motherhood and explained the many things she does on her own. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel the need to apologize for existing. She became Diana, not just a Princess of Wales. These pages are about her regaining her rightful identity, the freedom of her laughter, and the will to live as she wants to. Unlike some other royal memoirs, the diary does not mask the difficulties Diana has gone through after her divorce. Out of it, she wrote of the difficulties of setting a role for herself and the pressures of the constant surveillance surrounding her. Towards the end of the diary, Diana can open more up to the idea of having a future where she could love whoever she wanted. She speaks with hopefulness, as if to say, it is not easy to begin the process of healing and rebuilding. How did the media portrayal of Diana affect her public image? The role of media and public perception.
My mother was the Queen for a very long time. And although you kind of know that this might happen, you don't really think about it very much.
Everyone bows and curtsies to the King, and no one moves a limb, a muscle, when Camilla passes.
The ability to have somebody who is kind of epitomizes what you think your country stands for.
The media and Princess Diana were linked in a very complicated way. The admirer and the admired, the friend and the foe. The media has always been involved in her life, starting with her marriage to Prince Charles and the fairy tale princess image she was granted, the separation and beyond. On the one hand, she was a queen. Millions of people admired her and waited for her every step. Photographers and reporters followed her, and ordinary citizens also wanted to catch a glimpse of the star. This attention made her the most photographed woman in the world, the epitome of beauty and elegance. She was irreverently known as the people's princess for a reason. She could bridge the gap between her and the people, no matter how thick the royal divide. However, the same media attention was mostly lethal. The press continued to hound Diana and intrude on her privacy and churn headlines that portrayed her difficulties as display for the masses to see. Her marital problems, emotional problems, and struggles with anorexia nervosa were twisted into gossip magazines. These stories fit into a cycle where her pain was continuously being examined. While the public adored her, this kind of attention further alienated her, and occasionally it appeared that media attention was a two-bladed edged weapon. She was a successful woman of the late 20th century, but suffered in her personal life to achieve that success. The media attention on her life and her fight was the reason she felt she was living in an enforced golden cage. She could never run away from public scrutiny. The media was also a significant part of her life. As the years went by, she turned the attention that the media gave her to her advantage, more so in her humanitarian activities. The press artificially magnified her passion for AIDS patients and landmine victims, and this helped her to make a difference in ignored global problems. In this respect, Diana was fortunate to take the power back and use her celebrity status to advocate for the issues she cared so passionately about. This is exactly what Princess Diana's life was, a construct of the public perception of her created by the media. Her image, created by tabloids and recreated by television camcorders, simultaneously symbolized power and suffering. Instead of just being a spectator in her life, the media became a participant, informing how she was perceived by society. In the end, Diana's story shows that she was able to overcome the harsh pressures of the public eye. She transitions from being a childish girl to a woman of power, constantly being watched by the media's lenses. How did Princess Diana's life transform from media love and hate to a battle of constant fear and surveillance? Under siege, fear and pressure. Princess Diana's life was a struggle between fame and misery, and one of her biggest fears was a danger to her life. She grew to feel that all facets of life were under surveillance. Her phone was tapped, her car was tailed, and her moves were watched. One disturbing entry that seemed to predestine her early death was her vision of the Prince of Wales planning an accident for her. She thought if something was to happen to her, then it should not be considered an accident. The feeling of constantly living under the threat and fearing what lay ahead overwhelmed her. It was not paranoia, it was the real life under the public gaze of a royal family that appeared to have a talent for keeping the show on the road. From her diaries, one could see how much the oppressive surveillance damaged her psychologically. Diana was not afraid of being tailed by the paparazzi, but of being followed by everybody. It did not matter if it was the paparazzi following her move by move, or people in general who never seemed to leave Diana alone for a single moment. The need to live up to the image while bearing all that was happening to her became so unbearable that she was affected mentally. Behind the glamour of a tiara and royal duties was the internal terror of depression and bulimia, disorders that became Diana's companions. The 1990s were not a time to talk about mental health struggles, but Diana wrote away in her diary that the constant surveillance weighed her down. It was like a reality show without the happy ending. But, as made clear through Diana's recorded voice and intimate diaries, the fairy tale life of a princess was toxic to her mental well-being. The poison of the repeated surveillance was slowly sapping her strength, and the eating disorder was the result of it. She could not hide from the world. Although she could make jokes about it, her diary showed the extent of her ordeal. Her writing also effectively portrayed what she was dealing with, a desire to stay a graceful and decent lady on the outside while dying inside from pressure and consequent fame. Diana's fears for her life were not just in her head. There was a concrete reason for her to feel so threatened by those who tried to dictate her story. Diana's life under siege was rather a sad story of survival. She tried to preserve a sense of independent life, even if all circumstances were otherwise designed to destabilize her. How did the British royals react to all these? Reactions from Buckingham Palace. Regarding the rebuttal, Buckingham Palace, never one to overdo things, had a let's not rock the boat and let events unfold sort of policy. The royal family, who had always been known to be so proper, could hardly contain their remarks while Diana let the royalty out of the bag. Everything from her painful marriage to her irritation at the royals. But instead of dealing with her directly, the palace chose the path of least resistance. Hence, no comment is golden. It was not the most professional of actions, but it was their action. However, Diana's popularity grew, so the palace could not remain indifferent to the conflict. Diana was the people's princess, and the royals were left to watch her become bolder, more liberated, and more iconic. But the real drama was only after she tragically died. At first, the Queen's reaction was, you could say, rather chilly. The palace took its sweet time returning from holiday, which did not sit well with the public. Hence, the backlash as the public became more and more sad, and the palace started to change its attitude. For one of those few times in her reign, Queen Elizabeth, who is as stone-faced as any Greek statue, spoke from the heart. It was an attempt to calm the mourning public with some royal feeling of sympathy. The palace then managed to do the great PR trick, and recognizing Diana's influence, they decided to refer to her as the people's princess. They could have been as close as they were ever willing to admit that they had misread the tone. However, let's be realistic. Diana had set a new pace, and the monarchy would not be the same again. The royals' responses to the speeches, which included no comment, indicated their unpreparedness for such an outpouring of grief. Diana's death made them change their image, which contributed to changing the tone of the monarchy. That may or may not have been the right approach, but Diana's legacy was set, and the palace had to find out how to deal with a world where it wasn't the crown that defined a princess, but her character. How does the world remember Diana and her legacy? A legacy beyond the palace.
HIV does not make people dangerous to know, so you can shake their hands and give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it.
Princess Diana was the royal beauty with a conscience that could not be bought or silenced, a beauty that would light up the world and be extinguished far too soon, but whose light continues to shine through all of us who believe in love. But apart from the royal duties and dancing in charity balls, she was a woman much more than a face behind the crown. Diana recast royal status and taught the world about acceptance, kindness, and rebellion regarding mental health. This woman was one of the first who started working with AIDS patients and with the survivors of the landmines. When AIDS was an unknown disease, all people with HIV were ostracized. Diana offered her hand to those pushed away, even as far as South Africa. Her advocacy for the landmine victims not only got reported but changed the world by making decision-makers act on matters that were previously overlooked. Diana was the symbol of grace. She was a force to reckon with who was using her voice for helpless persons. However, it is important to remember this woman's honesty about her struggles. Diana addressed her mental and eating problems, which was quite rare in the 90s, and thus she broke the silence on such concerns. Who would have imagined that the world's most widely known princess would set the tone for actual discussions of mental health? But that is what she did, demonstrating that even the royals are people, and that everyone can use emotions to find common ground. What about her divorce from Prince Charles? That was the plot twist people did not see coming into the kingdom. But rather than shy away under such pressure, Diana was reborn, changed, to teach the world that even when it comes to heartbreak in the public eye, you can rebuild yourself and own who you are. The media no longer reported about Princess Diana. She was Diana, the woman who had created her destiny. Diana did not die with her life. She continues to make headlines even today. It lives on in the causes she supported and the topics she created discourse on. Her story motivates the general populace, and the female gender in particular, to come forward, fight social injustice, and never accept anything that they feel is beneath them. Thanks to her, she brought the royal image from a faraway absolute dream kingdom into people's everyday lives. A message that true royalty starts in people's hearts, and are encouraged to be themselves for who and what they are. The legacy of Diana may not be written in books of royal protocol, but it's embedded in the way we view the world today, a little more kind, a little more tolerant, and a little less strict about things. She may have been the people's princess, but her actions did not stay confined to Buckingham Palace and will reverberate forever. What can we take away from the life and impact of Diana? Will these revelations shape the royal family forever? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.